So what system and structure we should follow? And then we'll talk about what is feedback. What is ideal feedback? I want to go into a little bit of details about superlatives and rambling. What should be incorporated in your delivery? What is important while delivering your evaluation? We'll talk about that. How to practice your evaluations. And finally, questions. This is an interactive session, so stop me anytime. I would love if you stop me because I can share more information. I'm going to share a lot of different things today, but these are the three main takeaways I want you to have. The three main takeaways are: number one, radical candor. Radical candor is the intersection of caring personally as well as giving a directly challenging feedback. So remember, caring personally and directly challenging feedback. The second thing I want you to remember is the magic of I statements, use of I heard, I felt, I saw. And finally, a feedback, giving an ideal feedback which has a specific example and a why attached to it. If you remember these three things, that will help you to take your evaluations to the next level. My first question to you is, why do we need to evaluate? Anyone?
So we know how to improve our delivery in our speeches, and our non-verbal part of our speeches, the use of gestures, use of walking movement, stage movement, everything else involved in that.
Definitely, Mark, that's correct. Any other?
I think as a speaker, we'd like to know how our presentation or how a speech will impact our audience. We'd like to know.
Yes, very true. Impact is one of the things which we evaluate. Any other?
We can't see our own gaps.
Yes, yes. And also we sometimes don't know what things we are doing effectively. So that is also sometimes like, I want to know, like, okay, what things are connecting with the audience? So gaps is wonderful things. What things? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that, sometimes we think our speech is really good,
Yes.
but when somebody evaluates it, there are some minute points which we would have missed. And we can get a lot of, one small thing might make the speech totally different. So we get all good inputs also. So that's very helpful.
Very true, very true. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you. Another thing which I want to point it out is we also learn from other speakers. When we are evaluating, it's like, oh, wow, I can do that. Some things we can incorporate in our speeches also. So thank you so much for your answers. I want to go into radical candor. I want to share a story with you. Last year, in the starting of the year, I was evaluating a speaker. He was a level 5 speaker, and I knew his speech did not meet the objectives. I knew the speaker was not prepared, and I did not call on him. I did not say, I was afraid to tell him all these things. So I asked my mentor, Dennis Austin, Dennis, what should I do? I had this, but I could not tell him. He told me about radical candor. Like, you can tell the same things, but in a very compassionate way, as well as challenging him directly. So here is the radical candor compass. On the y-axis, on the top side, you have caring personally. On the other side of the y-axis, you don't care about the speaker. On the x-axis, on one side, you have challenging directly, while on the other side, you are staying silent. So here are 4 different quadrants. Which quadrants our evaluation should be? We'll go through one quadrant at a time. The first quadrant is manipulative insincerity. This is the worst of the bunch. Here, the evaluator is staying silent as well as he doesn't cares about the speaker. We don't want to be in this quadrant. I've not seen any Toastmasters in this quadrant. The second quadrant is called as ruinous empathy. Here, I stayed silent as I cared personally about the person. This is something which we need to avoid. I will also give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a club and the person gave a speech about effective body language. The speaker was doing a PowerPoint presentation for a speech for a project, effective body language, and only he moved his hand a little bit. The evaluator pointed it out. Oh, wow, your hand movement was really helpful for the speech. I felt that that was ruinous empathy because the speech project is effective body language. And when you are giving a presentation and you are not showing your body language, then it's like you are not challenging him directly. So if you can try to give a challenging feedback to your speaker. Obnoxious aggression. Here, as an evaluator, sometimes we are giving a very directly challenging feedback, but we are not caring about our speaker. I've seen this kind of things in some clubs. I myself found it like I became defensive about it. It was harder for me to take that feedback. So if you can try to avoid this, actually, this is the second best category, but it's still, the change is very little in this quadrant. And finally, radical candor. Radical candor, as I told you, is the intersection of caring personally as well and challenging directly. When we give a feedback in this quadrant, we make the maximum amount of change or a profound change in the speaker. And when we have this profound change, we have the maximum amount of growth. If you see in other two quadrants, ruinous empathy and manipulative insincerity, there is very little change or no change at all. And in obnoxious aggression, you have little change, but it's still, as I told you, I become defensive about obnoxious aggression or directly challenging feedback without empathy. Any questions so far in this quadrants?
Really like the idea.
Okay. Thank you, Ming. Thank
I
you.
have a question about the speaker that was doing the body language. You said they were using their hands a lot.
Yeah.
Were they using it ineffectively and nobody said anything?
Yeah, he was not using, he was using ineffectively and then, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I do like your idea. I think even in our clubs, we kind of, when we evaluate, we don't really focus on the project. That is something I think we should mention a lot. The purpose of that particular project and the things what we should focus on. Oftentimes we can just ignore that.
No, purpose of the project is very important. I agree with you, Ming. Thank you so much. Here are some things we need to evaluate. If you don't like the speaker, keep it aside. We don't evaluate the person. We evaluate their speech content. We evaluate their speech delivery. And as Ming had talked about earlier before, we also evaluate how their speech impacted us. These are the three things which we are evaluating. Keep this in mind. If we don't like the speaker, keep that aside. We only evaluate the speech content, delivery, and how did the speech impacted us. In next 12 slides, I'm going to show you each one of the examples, like what we are going to evaluate. This is just, I didn't want to put each of those words in one slide. It's nice to spend a little bit of moment on each of those words. The first word is vocal variety. How impactful was their vocal variety? Did it make the difference in the speech? Or was it missing in the speech? You can immediately point that out or share the feedback on that. So remember, one of the things you can give evaluation on is vocal variety. The second one is gestures. Were their gestures effective? Were their gestures sincere? Were their gestures authentic? I'll give you an example. Like I was practicing for an humorous speech contest. I'd rehearsed the speech so much that my gestures were not authentic. My mentor, Dennis, said, you practice the speech so much that you sound rehearsed and then continue practicing until you sound natural. And that when I started practicing more, then my gestures became more authentic. So think about that. Were their gestures authentic, sincere? You can give an evaluation on that. Role play. Role play is very effective. You can share a lot of information in a very small amount of time by doing a role play. And sometimes role play can add a lot to the speech. But was it effective? You can share information on that, share your feedback on that. Audience awareness. In Zoom, how do you check the audience awareness? Sometimes what I do is when the speaker is speaking, I'll put my window in a gallery mode and I will see how the audience is reacting. Is the speaker aware of the audience reaction? So remember, the audience engagement is important and the speaker should keep an attention to the audience needs. Props. I saw a speaker who was giving a tall tales. He was using like 20 props in a speech, in a 5-minute speech. I felt it was very distracting. So you can give a feedback on that props. Was it effective or was it distracting? Clarity. If someone has a story, was it story easy to follow? Was it simple enough for us to go through it? So you can give a feedback on their clarity of that speech. Pauses. Pauses are an effective weapon in our speech. If we follow that, we can make a maximum amount of impact on our audience. Were their pauses effective? We can talk about that. First line and last line. This is the one way of concluding your speech where they connect the first line and the last line. And this can becomes very effective. So you can call them on it. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, this was done well. Or you can suggest that you can connect your first line and the last line of the speech. Preparation. Mostly speakers are prepared, but sometimes if they're not prepared, you can say if you had done enough preparation, you would have a consistent flow in the story or very easy delivery. So you can point that out. Content. Content is 55% of the speech in the contests. So how was their content? Was it engaging? Was it impactful? What impact it had on you? You can share that on them. Comfort. If the speaker is new, sometimes they are not comfortable on the screen or giving a speech. And you can say, like, with more practice, you will become more comfortable. Don't worry about it right now. Call to action. Mostly speeches will have call to action. Sometimes the call to action is very effective and sometimes not that effective. So you can share your feedback on that. So here are all the different categories. I just did not want to put them on one slide, so I separated them out. Any questions regarding this?
Quick question, Abhijit.
Yep.
So there's what, 12 items there. How do you decide which ones to comment on and when do you decide?
Yep. So what happens is, I'll go into this, my body. You don't want to share all the 12 things, the things which stood out for you. Just use the top 2 things which stood out for you and the 2 things if something they could do effectively. Okay, you don't have to go through all 12. This is just a list, but you just have to use 2 or 2. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'm very slow at writing down the things I see.
Yep.
I really have a trouble to capture everything. What do you suggest what I should do when I evaluate?
So Okay, the one thing which I've learned from one of the Renee, who is the champion for district, she writes in 6 words. Don't make it very long. Just write it in like tweetable form. You know, you with more practice, you'll come to know how to write the big things in a very small 6 words or something. So when you can capture that, that will make your evaluation more effective, because that will be helpful for us. Okay.
Thank you.
Now I will jump into things which we can do for advanced speakers. These are only 2 ways of evaluating advanced speakers. I'm trying to incorporate them in my evaluations. You don't need to follow them for every evaluation. These are just selective examples. The first one is, if someone is giving a persuasive speech, you can evaluate their speech based on ethos, pathos, and logos. I'll go into details of each one of these things.
Can you stop before you go on? Can
Yes.
you give a definition? Who is advanced speakers?
Oh, advanced speakers is someone who has see, I showed you the 12 categories initially, right? And sometimes if we are not able to find those, then we can use different ways of evaluating. Okay. So this is another way of evaluating a persuasive speech. Advanced speakers means who have it's very tough to find something in their speech immediately.
For example, if somebody finished level 5, will we consider that's an advanced speaker or not?
See, it's very relative, Ming. Sometimes people completing level 5 speech, they can be advanced speakers, sometimes not. You can't generalize them. So
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Just wondering.
So you can evaluate some of the speeches based on ethos, pathos, and logos. We'll go into definitions of each one of them, so that will help you understand what it means. The first thing is logic, logos. Does their speech have a logic, reasoning, and proof? How is their logic laid out? Do they have the opening, body, and the conclusion for the structure of the speech? What kind of proof they are sharing for their speech? Is it from the case studies, or is it from statistics, or is it from the references of various studies? You can point that out. Are they using any kind of analogies or comparisons for their reasoning? That's something we can keep in mind while doing the logos part of the evaluation. The second part, ethos. Is the speaker creditable, or are they able to establish the credibility with us? That is important. That comes with sometimes, are they confident in their delivery? That matters. We can feel the credibility through their confidence. The second thing, does the speaker cite credible sources? Like suppose if I'm giving a speech and I quote Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is a very credible person, so that immediately impacts what I'm saying. So you can talk about ethos. Ethos is about building trust and credibility. And finally, pathos. Is the speaker able to arouse emotions and values in you through their stories, through their vivid languages, through their inspirational quotes? So that is pathos. So these 3 things which we can use for giving an evaluation. This is only for persuasive speeches only. The second part, like I started using this, I was evaluating Lindy McLean, who is the 3rd place winner of the World Championship of Public Speaking 2020. She asked me to be her evaluator. It was like, okay, what can I evaluate? Then I decided to use this 5 secrets to evaluate her speech. There are total 5 secrets, 5 communication secrets. And if we can incorporate all these 5 secrets in our speech will be at the next level. The first secret, which we know, the words are only merely 7%. Your body language is 55% of the communication. Your tone of voice is 38% of the communication. This is the secret number 1. Secret number 2, do they have a compelling message in their story? Compelling message is very important because that's what we want the audience to take home. So having a compelling message makes a difference. Secret number 3, having a conversational style. When I started writing speeches, my speeches were more like essays. They were not like a conversation. A speech should be a conversation. So having a conversational style is very, very important. Secret number 4, authentic passion. Can you feel the passion from the speaker? When you feel the passion from the speaker, it's contagious, it affects us. And finally, secret number 5, using 4 languages of human communication. Most people use only 2 languages. 10% of the people use 3 languages. And only 0.5% of the people use all 4 languages. I didn't know anything about this, but when I started reading, it started making sense. The first language. Is the speaker able to communicate with you visually? Are they excited? Are they enthusiastic about what they're speaking about? That is connecting with you visually. The second thing, second human communication language. Are they able to connect with their words? Are they able to articulate their words properly so that we can understand them? That is using the auditory communication language. The third one, auditory digital. What does auditory digital means? It means supporting your message with details, facts, and analysis. So this is auditory digital. And finally, kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is the speaker able to arouse feelings in you? Do you feel connected with the speaker? Is the speaker able to communicate through the senses like smell, touch, and taste? This comes in kinesthetic communication language. So total, there are 4 of these. So suppose you can evaluate someone based on these total 5 secrets. Any questions so far?
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, that's something which you can have it in your mind, and it's like always something which we can aspire for. Whenever you are doing an evaluation, we should use the I statements. What are these I statements? I saw, I felt, I heard. These statements, they show observation. Observation, not judgment, is the greatest form of human intelligence. So I had to make a big change to use this I felt, I saw. Instead of using you, I was using you language a lot. So if you can, try to avoid that. And this is a list of different I statements I got from Stuart Murray. So as I told you, for observations, I heard, I felt, I saw, or I noticed. But something, if you want to reinforce something positive from the speech, you can also use the statements like, I loved, I liked, I enjoyed the usage of the props which you had in your speech. You can use that. Something was,
Abhijit,
yes.
can I ask you a question?
Sure, please,
Yeah.
please.
So when we give some positive input, sometimes when you use the word you, it's more motivating, I feel, than just say, I observed that you did this, something like that. Maybe a good way of saying
Yes, yep. Okay. That's true. But you don't start, you need to use I something before then you use you. Okay. If something was detracting, any other questions so far?
No.
Okay. If something was detracting in the speech, you can use I was confused by the plot. I didn't understand what happened. I dislike the usage of too many props in your speech. You can use them. And finally, when you're asking the speaker, telling the speaker how to do the speech more effectively, you can ask, I wanted to know what happened to the story. I like to see less of the props. I love to hear what happened to this story in the end. So you can use the statements in a proper way so that they start with I. Any questions regarding these I statements? System. Like Ming was asking, how do we take notes? There is one way of taking notes. Initially, what I do was I just put positive and the dash sign. For the things the speaker did effectively, I'll use the positive signs. And for the dash sign, some things the speaker could do to make the speech more effective. But there are total 2 more signs which I found from Stewart, which he was using. One is question mark. It's like if something was confusing, you can use it as a question mark. And then you can also use a star for some of the things that stood out for you. So this is a very easy way of taking notes. Try to condense what you write using signs will make it more effective for you to take notes. Structure. An evaluation should have 3 things: introduction, body, and summary. In the introduction, we should only talk about how the speech impacted us. That should be only 2 lines, 2 to 3 lines, not more than 20 seconds. So introduction, how the speech impacted you. What did the speech reminded you of? I'll talk about the body in the next slide. So as I told you, introduction is how the speech impacted you. In the body, you can talk about 2 things the speaker did effectively and 2 things the speaker could do to make his speech more effective. And then you can talk about the best thing about the speech. Last week, I went to Austin, Texas. I was a test speaker. And the evaluator, when he evaluated my speech, he just talked about one thing the speaker did effectively. It's one thing I did effectively. One thing I could do to make my speech more effective. And the best thing about the speech. So you don't necessarily need to do 2, 2, 1, but you can also do 1, 1, 1. Okay. And finally, summary. Summary is very important because if you repeat it, the speaker gets it. If you don't summarize it, sometimes you forget, oh, what was the first point they said? So try to summarize it. Try to summarize. And when I'm summarizing it, what I do is I reverse the order. I talk about the 2 things speaker could do to make their speech more effective, followed by 2 things the speaker has done effectively. And then the best thing about the speech. The reason why I do that in the summary is because I want to end on a positive note. Our goal is to motivate the speaker. So ending on a positive note is a must. Feedback. I initially didn't know what a feedback was. An opinion is an opinion without a Y attached to it. An opinion is something which does not have a Y attached to it. A feedback is something which has a Y attached to it. And ideal feedback is something which has a Y and a specific example attached to it. The one thing I'm still struggling is sometimes having that specific example. When I have that specific example, then my evaluation goes to the next level. So remember, always try to have that why and specific examples in your evaluation. Superlatives. I have a friend or a very veteran Toastmaster. His name is Solarzar. He told me about superlatives. He said, when you use too many superlatives, it shows laziness of usage of English language. Superlatives do not tell anything to the speaker. So if you can, try to avoid them. Solar sir was telling me that there was one champion who was giving this evaluation, and he was calculating how many times she was using amazing, 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 amazing. So amazing does not tells anything to the speaker. So if you can, please avoid that. Rambling. I had a fellow Toastmaster. He was giving, I was the test speaker and he was giving me an evaluation. I really enjoyed his evaluation. But what happened in one of the points, he used 3 to 4 lines to explain that one point. Because of that, he could not summarize his complete evaluation because we only have 3 minutes, 30 seconds. And because he could not summarize it, he came in second in the competition. So try not to ramble. Rambling you will exceed your time limits. You don't have to tell all the things. Some of the things you can also tell privately. So try to be very crisp in your language. For a regular meeting, always share your evaluation form with your evaluator. That is very, very important. We need to do that. Once you get the evaluation form, the first thing you should do is look at the objectives of the speech. What are the objectives? What project he's working on? What are the objectives the speaker is meeting? So review that. Always ask the speaker, is there something they're specifically looking for? Like I told my evaluator, Daniel, are you able to connect with me? How are my gestures? Are they repetitive or are they authentic? So you can tell the evaluator some specific things. Make sure you always give the right evaluation form. Having a right evaluation form is very important. And once you do the evaluation, write the evaluation on the PDF and send it to them. This is the link which has a list of all the 65 projects which we have in Toastmasters. These are the links for the evaluation forms. The first thing in the delivery, be very specific. The more specific you are, the more points you're going to get, and the speaker will know exactly what you're talking about. So the specific example in the speeches is the most important thing in your delivery. Speak for yourself. As I told you, use the I language. I saw, I felt, I heard. Initially, when I started doing an evaluation, I was afraid. But then I realized it's my opinion. So be sincere. Just share what you feel. Your feeling, what you felt is very important. If someone is giving an icebreaker, don't try to give them 2 or 3 ways to make their speech more effective. Just stick with one thing, how to make their speech more effective. As I told you in the introduction, always share how the speech affected you. That is very important to have the introduction about how the speech affected you. Don't evaluate the person, always evaluate the content as well as the delivery of the speech. How to practice an evaluation? The best way to practice is YouTube. Renee, who is a district champion, what me and her did, she was in the finals for the evaluation contest. We both sat down every day. We used to look at semi-final world championship speeches. And once the speech is done, she used to have 5 minutes to give an evaluation. So we practiced it. We did like 18 speeches like that. And after that, it made a big difference in our evaluation. So practice. YouTube is the best place to practice. Again, 3 main takeaways. Radical candor. Radical candor feedback is at the intersection of caring personally and directly challenging feedback. Use of I statements, I heard, I felt, I saw. And give a feedback which has a why and a specific example attached to it. Questions?
Abhijit, this
Yes.
Lakshmi.
Yep.
Yeah. I had a question. You had said that one of the I statement was I dislike something.
Yes. Mhm.
How can I use radical candor to say I dislike something in your speech?
Or you can say like, I dislike the usage of too many props in your speech.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, you can use it in that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It's, because I felt that dislike is a very strong word. So
Yeah, yeah. You can use you can use a different softer word also.
Okay.
You know. Yeah.
But I have a question. I mean,
Yep.
I think these materials are excellent and
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah.
And how do we practice?
Practices. You know, one thing, Ming. Try to whenever you get a chance, be an evaluator. And if you want to practice more, YouTube is the best place. Like I can give you some links, which has 20, 30, 28 videos. Okay.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And they just speak, they have a speech. Take yourself 5 minutes and then give an evaluation.
Can you send the video? Put it in
Yes.
the,
Yep. I'll send you
channel?
those 4 links. Yes.
So I have a question. I agree with Ming, the material is great,
Yes.
but it's on the radical candors.
Yep.
I mean, I think as Toastmasters, we all would care about the speaker.
Yep.
And we hope to be candid.
Yep.
But do you have practical advice there? Since, as you said, you've never seen a Toastmaster in the lower left corner, which is good. But
Yes.
what specifically should we look out for or think about as an evaluator to further develop radical candor?
You know, the one thing I'll tell you is whenever someone is giving a speech, it affects me. Those feelings, what you feel is very important. Share what you feel. Because if you're sharing what you feel, then that will be because it's radically candor, because you know what you are feeling. And share that with that speaker. That will impact them. What has happened initially when I was starting to do an evaluation, I would not share what I felt because I was afraid that it will be hard for them to take it. So I would just keep it with myself. And that change I had to make. It's like, it's okay. I have to share it, what I feel. I want to be very honest with what I felt. Once you start doing that, then that makes the difference. You'll go into the radical candor quadrant.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, but
Yes,
I
Kevin.
have a question.
Sure.
Within Toastmasters, we have a secondary role. We have the general evaluator.
Yeah.
Now, this is more of a politics question, I guess, as it were. But when you are a general evaluator, do you feel it is a responsibility to kind of instill some of these ideas, or do you think, groups need to figure it out for themselves and you should just lead by example?
No. General evaluator needs to point it out because his role is to grow the evaluators. If they practice ruinous empathy, the club is not going to go to the next level. Okay? They need to practice radical candor. They need to point it out what things were effective in the evaluation, what things were not effective. Hi, Mary Lou.
Sorry to be late.
It's okay. Any other questions?
What was that first feedback? You had the feedback with
With a why and a
yeah,
specific
why and
example.
then
Specific
ideal
example.
feedback, and the first one was without a why.
Yeah, opinion. Don't give your opinions.
Okay,
Because they are not very helpful because they don't have a why attached to it.
that's right. Opinion.
Okay, Ming, should we, any other questions?
Okay, so one thing I wanted to add, sometimes we might have an opinion, but it's something we feel, right?
Yes.
Something we feel, but we might not be able to point out why we have that opinion, right? Because we just feel it.
Yep.
So it's still okay to, give that feedback to the speaker.
But attach a specific example with it. You felt this from this, right? When you talked,
okay.
that is very important. That specificity in that speech is very important. Okay.
Abhijit, this is Lakshmi again.
Yes. Yep.
I had a question. Sometimes when there is a speech, I don't find anything wrong in the speech. There's no negative for me in that. How do I give them the feedback?
So you can see, one thing I'll tell you about Lakshmi, she's just a very new Toastmaster. Lakshmi, same thing happened to me. When I started, it's like, how can I find feedback for people who have been speaking for so long? But with more practice, you get used to it. You train your brain like that. And if you don't find feedback, share things what you liked about this speech. Share that specific example and why you liked it. That will make it effective.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a sort of suggestion in terms of structure for opinion versus feedback? I guess my question relates to kind of Akshaya was asking. Would you recommend saying something like, I felt so-and-so because? Is that a good way to start off?
Yes, you can say that, but what specific in the speech? Always have that specific example also. Because going to that specific example is very important, because that lets speaker know where in the speech it is happening. Okay. Any other questions? What we can do is we can go ahead with Ming's speech, and then we'll have a couple of evaluators give evaluation to Ming. We'll give 5 minutes to the evaluators. One thing here, what we can do is when Ming gives his speech, I want everyone to evaluate him and put your evaluation in the chat after 5 minutes, so that we have everyone's points, and then we can talk about and discuss about it. And then we'll have a couple of evaluators who can share their complete evaluation.
Abhijit, could you flash that one that you had all the prompts for again?
Yes.
I wanted to take a quick
Sure,
screenshot.
sure, please. I will do that.
Perfect.
You're going to send us a PowerPoint?
Yes, yes. Yep. I'm going to put it in the chat also, and I'm going to send it to everyone too.
Thank you.
Please download, it's in the chat.
Okay. Let me get some waters.
Abhijit, so you
Yep.
said that after the speech, after 5 minutes, we have to put our evaluation on the chat. So
Yes.
is it going to be just a couple of words? Because how do I?
No,
how do
no,
we
miss.
do?
Take 5 minutes and then
Type it out.
type it
Okay.
out if you can. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
During the speech, take the notes, and you have 5 minutes to type it out, whatever you can. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Mika, let me get my notebook so that I also want to take notes. Okay.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I give you permission to be obnoxious, because I really want to know how you feel. So
We'll
it is
try,
okay.
man.
So, and
I know how to be
think
obnoxious.
I really want to be honest with me, and then I think that's what I'm looking for.
Radical candor.
Of course,
Okay.
I will be I will appreciate if you're being kind to me,
Yeah.
but of course, it's not required.
Ming, what is your speech title?
Oh, my speech title is My Friend Bob.
My friend Bob. Okay, perfect. And it's 7 minutes, right?
7 minutes.
Perfect. Ming Yang, my friend Bob, my friend Bob, Ming Yang.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible teaches nothing is impossible with God. I like to share a story of my friendship with Bob. How trusting God has blessed me with a new friend in an unusual way for me through weekly phone calls. 2 important things happened in the US in 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic and the presidential election. The pandemic has caused us to be increasingly isolated. And the election has exposed us that our nation is deeply divided. They made us aware of our deep needs for relationship and new ways of doing things in a chaotic, challenging time. Aware of my own needs and concerns for others, I decided to call many people I knew and ask them to meet with me virtually as much as possible during the pandemic. Why did I call people? Because I believe that God wants us to care for each other to meet our needs. The struggle we all have turned out to be a blessing in disguise for me. The initiative I took to call people has blessed me with many new friends. One of them is Bob, and many of you are present. Bob is a spiritual man, an opinion leader. He is also a Trump supporter. He was very different from me with many, many political views on many, many matters. I called Bob and shared with him my longing for friendship and my desire to seek understanding. He agreed to talk to me every week. I was just so happy when Bob said yes. As we met every week, I got to know Bob better. He's retired, working part-time, and is busy with beekeeping and gardening. Bob enjoys talking to people and helping others, a character trait that allows him to speak to a guy with strong opinion like me. We had many, many hard, engaging conversations. One of the most challenging one, also most rewarding one, is conversation about President Trump. One day I asked Bob calmly, why do you support Trump? The moment I posed the question, I could sense the tension over the phone. I argued with him over a range of issues, from government to the media, from elected officials to the fake news. They were difficult conversations. And I can still remember my heart thumping, our voice rising, and temperature heating up. Comments like, Trump is a liar. You cannot trust CNN. I get my news from Rush Limbaugh. I cannot stand Fox News. Are still ringing in my head when I recalled our conversations. Fortunately for us, our goal was not winning the argument, but hearing each other out and seek understanding. Instead of arguing until we both get angry and frustrated, we decided to slow down and take turns to express our thoughts and listen to each other intently. We did so because we care for each other and we value our relationship. We use our meeting as an opportunity to learn, practice kindness, work together to resolve our differences, and seek common good. It made me see that even a Trump supporter can be my friend. As our friendship grew, we both looked forward to meeting every week. Our meeting was one of the highlights of my week. It allowed us to express and process our thoughts and feelings and allow us to exchanging ideas and learn to acknowledge and respect different views, encouraging one another to do good. We shared our family stories, various things were involved, politics, religion, marriage, racial relationship, even money. We prayed for each other. We prayed for our family and the friends, our nation, and the world affairs. I'm very grateful to God for my friend Bob, because it gives me a sense of feeling someone cares for me besides my family. What made it special was that Bob was the first person in my life who had a different political view, willing to listen to me intently. It also taught me that spending time together is one meaningful way to show you care, and it's vital to lasting friendship. The experience of Bob and I becoming friends is like a minor miracle to me. It increases my confidence that God always provides opportunities in challenging times. He can turn adversities into blessings, for nothing is impossible with God. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. All of us will take 5 minutes. I'll put a timer for 5 minutes. one more minute.
Should we address the feedback directly to Ming or everyone?
You can put it for everyone so that everyone can see it.
Grammatical mistakes and all.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Sorry, Abhijit, mine came as two parts because I was trying to put enter and
Yes. No worries. No worries.
yeah.
Elvira, you want to go first, or Matt, you want to go first? Who wants to go first?
Elvira can go first. If that's okay, but it's up to you.
Thank you. I can go first, yeah, because I think my evaluation will be shorter
Sure.
as I am learning how to do it at yet, and I'm afraid it's be quite concise. Anyway, so I want to start with commending Ming for the speech, because it did relate to my life in particular, I think, and also was compelling to other people as well. 2020 was hard time for everyone, and Ming, I think, did a good job to make us engaged in his speech from the very beginning. And throughout the speech, he managed to do it when he was discussing the arguments with his friend, because we were all involved, I guess, in some way on those discussions, which went during the 2020. And so that was a very good message, in my opinion, blessed in disguise. Something which is hard, something which is really difficult to accept, and yet this message, I guess, was delivered to everyone, to me, and I heard it. So what I would love to add to the speech, a bit probably more accentuated body language when he was showing the argument with his friend, Bob. He did actually, but make it more accentuated, like, okay, Ming is arguing with these words, and Bob is replying with something, okay? That was one thing which probably I would ask to, I think that is good to add. And also, it was really hard to, in fact, to give a feedback, because Ming is very advanced speaker. That's why I was trying to use actually the feedback for advanced speakers, which Abhijit mentioned in his evaluation speech, a speech devoted to evaluation. So I probably would mention only about the vocal variety, or maybe passion, although Ming is very experienced and it's really hard to get any to say about anything to improve. And yet I think it is, I felt like the speech was so well prepared that maybe to challenge, I would ask to challenge Ming himself even to be more passionate, to show his more passion in his speech, because it's like too well prepared sounded to me. So other than that, I was really enjoying the speech.
Thank-
And thank you for having for organizing this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elvira. Matt, should I give her feedback now or should I give her feedback after your evaluation?
Either way is fine.
I'll give you her feedback now. Elvira, when you say how the speech impacted you, like I would have said, I'll tell you. Ming, your speech reminded me of my phone conversation with my friend Ravi. The connection which I had when I had the call with him last week made me feel, I really enjoyed that. And I could see that you had the same kind of connection with Bob. See how I am relating his speech with don't talk about other people, just talk about you. Okay, it's just you. See how it's feeling in you. Okay. The second thing is I want you to be very clear. Okay, once you are done with the impact, here are the things you did effectively. 1, 2, and then here are a couple of things you could do to make your speech more effective. 1, 2, and you can summarize it. So very clear, concise. If you use too many words, it becomes very tough for myself or the Ming to understand what you're trying to say. The best thing about your speech, I agree with you. I will change the wordings, what you said. If he adds role playing to his speech with Bing on one side and Bob on another side, it will change his speech, take it to the next level. Okay. I really liked that point, Elvira. That was a phenomenal point. So thank you. Mary Lou, you have any feedback? You're muted.
You bet I do.
I knew that.
I was just typing it into the chat box. You want me to tell you what I was going to? Okay, yes.
No, you have any feedback for Elvira?
Oh, for Elvira?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. We'll come back to you then. Okay.
Abhijit, can I also try?
Yes. Matt, after Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Matt, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you, Ming, for that excellent speech. I felt like I'm sure everyone felt that it was very inspiring. Your story about your friendship with Bob and really about that, even if you have different views with someone, that you can still open your heart to that person, listen, care, and have a strong relationship. So I felt that was a very good message. I found your speech to be well structured. I liked how you started out by setting the context and how the world today is very divided. So that put your speech in context, and it made it easier to follow and understand what your point was. I also felt you used your gestures well. You were sitting down, but we could see your arms. It looked very natural. That was good. And you had excellent vocal variety. For example, you said, "Why do I call people?" And you raised your voice. And you also said, "I was so happy when Bob said yes. We can tell you were being sincere," or I could tell you were being sincere. One thing was your pace was good. It was easy to follow, but you might try varying that for next time for better effect, because it felt like the pace was constant to me. And I was sometimes confused when you were talking about, well, whether Bob was talking or you were talking. Now, Elvira mentioned you could do the role play. That would certainly help, but even just changing your voice between yourself and Bob, that would help. And so while the opening and the conclusion matched, you talked about God's influence on you and the world. That didn't, to me, feel like it was tied into the rest of the speech. It felt like it was tacked on to the beginning and the end. But in summary, I really enjoyed your storytelling. Your pace was good. Your vocal variety and gestures was good as well, and you had excellent structure. Congratulations, and back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Matt. Matt, I'm going to be a little bit picky. Sorry about that, but I have to be. In first two sentences, don't talk about everyone. Just talk about you. And if you can relate to us how the speech impacted you, what did it remind you of? What happened? How did that impact? Because I felt like you directly jump onto his story. Like, so just first two lines, how did it impact you? Okay. And you can have a specific say, here are the things which you did effectively, so that he knows. It gives you your evaluation a kind of a structure. And here are the things which you could do to make your speech more effective. I like the points you made. They were effective. I think you can, instead of making 4 points on the other side, you can only make 2 or 3, elaborate those. And I really enjoyed your speech. I'm going to come back to your feedback one more point little later on, because I want other people to go, and I had the same feedback for Meg actually. So, but I want to go through other people and then come back to it. But that is a really good point which you said, Matt.
Thanks.
Thank you. Lakshmi, you want to go?
Yeah, I like to go. Okay.
Mary Lou, you are after that, okay?
Your story, I was totally able to relate to it because, as I said in my chat, my husband and we both have different beliefs. He is too religious and I'm not that religious, but we love each other, and it's going to be 25 years this June. We've been married for more than 24 years now. So that was the thing I wanted to share with you. The thing I really liked about your speech was, the friendship you talked about was really good with your friend. I really enjoyed the way you said he's also a Trump supporter. That vocal variety really showed us, okay, Ming doesn't like Trump and Bob likes Trump. So that was the difference. And you showed it at the very beginning. So I really liked that. And that one sentence itself showed everything. The role play, I didn't notice what others had seen, but I really liked it because there was a role play showing how you were arguing with your friend. And that I really enjoyed. One thing that I would suggest is if the speech had been memorized and if you had seen the camera throughout, I would have felt connected. There were some places where I lost it because I was not able to connect with you. That's all. But the speech was so good, and the best part was the message you gave, especially this time, when there's so much diversity and so much issues going on. You said people of different thinking can still be friends. We just have to learn to acknowledge. And that was a beautiful message. To summarize, I would like to say it was an excellent speech with very good vocal variety and a very good message. I really enjoyed it. Just one point, I would like you to just see the camera, but it was too good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Lakshmi, I like how you shared the impact of the speech. The one thing which I want you to be more specific about is friendship becomes very general. I want you to go more into specific narration, what impacted you, rather than just saying the blanket friendship, because it's too broad. Okay. Or you can talk about the description of your dialogue made me connect with you, something very specific. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like the point you made, humor. And maintaining an eye contact would be effective. When you are summarizing it, summarize exactly the way you told. It's like if you don't try to bring in any new points in the summary. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sure. Mary Lou. Mary Lou is a pretty advanced evaluator. Okay. So
Now I have to live up to that expectation. Just forget what he just told you, okay, folks? Ming, I enjoyed your speech because you reminded me of so many people in my life. My parents are religious and Trump supporters. I am like you. I am not a Trump supporter. So I felt your story was familiar to me, and to go with you through this journey of a new relationship gave me hope that I can deepen my relationship with people who don't think like me. So I appreciate that you shared how to do that, because even though I sort of kind of know that, I need to be reminded of it. You spoke clearly, and I understood every word that came from out of your mouth, and you spoke at the perfect pace. I never struggled to understand what you were trying to tell me. A couple of suggestions that I have is that I believe your premise is with God, anything is possible. And I would suggest that the premise would be better or more, would be improved to be something like listen intently and spend time together creates deep connection. Because many people in your audience perhaps won't be believers in God. And really that is, I know that you're trying to promote a belief in God or a stronger belief in God, but I believe my suggestion is another thing to consider. I also know that your speech would have been more, would have been improved if you would have used more dialogue, less narration and more dialogue. You had so many opportunities when you were talking with Bob. You said things like, well, then you said, what was, I called Bob and shared with him, ... You put that into dialogue. That brings audience into your story. What you did best was the story was clear. It was simple. It had guidelines, how to have a relationship outside of your bubble. And as a result of listening to you, I believe you have prompted me and given me reminders of how I can improve my relationships with my family and a couple of my friends. And I thank you for that. Back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Marilu. Thank you. I enjoyed your evaluation, Marilu. The one feedback which I have is I wish you had one more point on the how he made his speech effective. One more. Okay, that's it. Otherwise, I really enjoyed it because I felt the impact. And when you talked about the impact, and then I want you to say, okay, here are the things which you did effectively. But I think you incorporated that thing in your impact itself. So I was like looking for the differentiation. Oh, now she's going to start about what he did in his speech effectively. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, yeah, you're muted.
You're saying that you want me to mention more than he spoke at a perfect pace and all his words were audible, and that the story was clear and simple and gave guidelines how to create relationship. You wanted a third positive.
Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. Otherwise, it's great. Perfect. Now coming back to Matt. Matt, you had this point. Rest of the story, and even Mary Lou said the same thing. The premise doesn't match us. I also felt the conclusion can be very, very strong. Ming had a very strong message, but it didn't get tied up to his story. You could really bring it out and ask us, encourage us to have that call for action and to develop that relationships with people. So you have that in your story. Okay. Any questions? Anyone wants to go? Matt, how did it feel to hear different evaluations?
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful to get feedback from you immediately after giving an evaluation, because we get feedback when giving a speech.
Yeah.
And we don't get the same level of feedback on evaluation, at least I haven't. So I felt that was very good. It was great to hear the different styles and gives me a lot to think about for future evaluations. So that was good.
Elvira, how was your experience listening to different evaluations? You listened to like 3 different evaluations apart from you.
Was actually interesting. Definitely I was, I felt like at least one thing, at least lots of, in fact, many more things, but one thing I just came to my mind, that playing the dialogue, which I actually mentioned in Ming's speech, not just playing the roles, but bringing the entire dialogue makes this speech very, very interesting and attractive. Yeah. So it is great that you gave this opportunity to listen to and see different ways of evaluating. For me, it was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Dang, how was your experience listening to all the 4 different evaluations?
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it was good to see the different styles from Elvira to Matt to Mary Lou, and then learning about the structure that you provided. So as I'm listening to the feedback, I'm literally looking for kind of that structure and trying to see if they were just following the guidelines, and then if they didn't, then what could I learn from them? So especially just listening to specifically to Mary Lou's structure, it really stood out because she, I guess, her being more experienced with giving feedback, it showed that she followed the structure, and something for me to keep in mind when I'm giving feedback, and just going through the process, and then at the end wrapping it up and summarizing. I think one thing is the summarizing part. We kind of get lost in that because we don't remember everything that we said. So to summarize it is a little bit challenging. So just working on that as a whole, but it was a really good experience.
Thank you so much. Ming, how was your experience listening to like 4 different feedbacks for you as a speaker? And now you know how to take it to the next level.
Oh, I really like, certainly I like the encouragement. That's my weakness. That's my weakness. But what really helped me, I think, is I do like to somehow to put a dialogue in there. And my challenge really is this: writing speech itself, it's very challenging to write in the proper English, and writing the dialogue will be additional challenge for me, but I would like to try to put it in there. I really thinking that is a great instruction. I find very. Another thing is how to do a summary and conclusion. That is my weak part. And perhaps I can using Matt to help me, or using you to help me how to structure the proper call for action. Perhaps I should probably call for action, how we resolving conflict. Perhaps that will be a much appropriate call for the action. Sometimes I kind of a little bit chicken out, try not to intrude into other people's space, but rather I try to just tell my own story. Hopefully other people will get it. But I do really enjoy the feedback. I like to have a specific impact. I don't really, even though I enjoy people say how great you are, but I really need is the things I need to do so I can be better. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ming.
Yeah, one more thing. I think it will be really, really helpful because I feel like we don't do a lot is I read the project, what I'm doing, we're supposed to try to connect with the audience with a story. And that's the specific project. That's why I'm trying to tell a story and to show a point. I thinking if at the beginning, if we can say that's the objective of this project, that'll be very, very helpful, I think.
Yeah, Ming, that's the job of the evaluator. They
Oh,
will announce what is the Toastmaster will announce that this is your project.
okay,
You don't have to mention.
okay.
I want to give it back to Whitney. How was your experience, Whitney? Okay. I will give it back to you, Matt.
Well, thanks a lot, Abhijit. Really appreciate you hosting this workshop. I learned a lot. I think everyone that came learned a lot as well. For anyone that would like to get on our mailing list, we have meetings every other